All right, welcome back to another live edition of the DFS Express, brought to you by Loudmouth MMA, the DFS Army, and my good buddy Newsom at Newsom MMA. And check all of those guys out. On deck this week, we have UFC Calgary. The main event is Dustin Poirier taking on Eddie Alvarez in a much anticipated rematch. Again, I mentioned this is live. If you were listening to it or watching this after the fact, I usually record these on Wednesday nights. This is a Thursday. I was feeling a little under the weather this week, so pushed it back a day. Um, Getting a lot more views on videos. I'm slowly ticking up along with some subscriptions. So if you could like this video and subscribe, I definitely appreciate it. It really does. The channel's starting to grow. I got soccer coming up, which will have some content there, which may or may not interest you. But again, thanks for all of the support I am getting. If you don't follow me on Twitter, go ahead and follow me at the DFS Sniper, just one S. I won't bore you guys with too much of the intro this week, but I did want to say thank you. And let's get right to it. Really good card this week, top to bottom, with maybe the exception of the first fight, almost all the way to the bottom. It is a very important fight for DFS, though. Devin Powell is at 8,400, taking on Alvaro Herrera at 7,800. This fight is moved into a pick'em. Devin Powell is still the favorite at minus 125. Herrera, the small underdog, at plus 105. This is a fight that it's hard to predict what's going to happen, except that someone's probably going to get finished. It is minus 190 to end inside the distance. You need exposure to both sides. Herrera throws big power, but he's been caught in submissions in each of his last two fights. Vicente Luque is the real deal, guys. Really good prospect, really slick Darce choke. But his most recent fight, he got caught in a sub against Jordan Rinaldi, a Von Flue choke, which is really embarrassing, not good. You should not be getting Von Flue in the UFC. While he was in the feet, though, he does have decent hands. He does have big power. Devin Powell just looks terrible. The loser of this fight is getting cut. The UFC, I believe Devin Powell's still in the UFC because he's from Maine. He's a Dana White guy, was on looking for a fight. Look, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but he's really defensive. He was on the ground almost the whole fight with Daryl Horcher. Didn't do a ton there. Doesn't really scare me. I'm going to take Alvaro Herrera. I think he gets a quick finish in Devin Powell. Powell is live to his submission. I just think Herrera is at a higher level overall. I am worried about the submission, but I think you need a bunch of this fight. Herrera is the preferred play at 7,800. I think he gets a quick finish. Betting wise, by the way, I know this is a DFS breakdown. I'm going to be interested in the Herrera to win by knockout or TKO prop when it comes out. Just something to look at if you're also betting. It's a big plus money play, plus 200. Not a ton of money, but I am interested there. Back to DraftKings. Nina Ansaroff, 8,500, taking on Brandon Marcos at 7,700. Don't get caught up in Nina Ansaroff's last fight against Angela Hill. Not in that she's not good and it wasn't an impressive performance. It was. She landed 143 significant strikes in a win. That volume, though, is more of an indicator of an Angela Hill fight. Angela Hill gets in these just slugfest. They stand and trade. She did it with Andrade. Nina Ansaroff did get a submission win over Jocelyn Jones-Lieberger, did land a decent amount of strikes in her win against Justine Kish, but Justine Kish also pushes the pace. Brandon Marcos looks to make fights dirty. She's going to get in the clinch, look for takedowns. She has decent success getting takedowns in UFC fights, and she advances. She had 2 takedowns against Juliana Lima, 4 in a loss against Alexa Grasso, and did win a close decision where she got a takedown against Carla Esparza. I don't really think she won that fight, if I remember right. She's been the benefit and she's gotten both ends of bad decisions in the UFC. But in this fight, she's going to look to close the distance. She moves in a straight line. She's there to be hit. But I don't think Nina Ansaroff can stop the takedown. We haven't really seen her challenged in that way lately. Justine Kish, Jocelyn Jones-Lieberger, Angela Hill. None of them have the grappling that Brandon Marcos does. Marcos, I'm interested in as an underdog play. I wish she was a little cheaper at 7,700, but I think she's relatively safe for cash games as a dog because she's not going to get finished. There's a little bit of line value now as the line keeps creeping up on Brandon Marcos. She is plus 115. So she really has the makings of an interesting cash play. I don't have much interest in Ansaroff because I'm picking against her, so I'm not interested too much in cash, and not a high ceiling for GPPs because she's not going to land 140 significant strikes again. So Brandon Marcos is my preferred play at 7,700 for this fight, guys. I see there are a few people in. I don't think I mentioned it, but and you're listening to after the fact. Join us live. Ask some questions as things come up. Let me know. Especially, I think I'm going to get some interesting takes on this next fight because my opinion has slowly started to shift on this one. We have Mateus Nicolau at 9,000 taking on Dustin Ortiz at 7,200. When the week first started, I was very high on Nicolau, looking into him a bunch in all formats. I think he's becoming more of a GPP play for me now. The line on this fight, by the way, Nicolau's a minus 190 favorite. Ortiz is plus 165. Nicolau has good power. He got a bunch of takedowns against. I was looking at Ortiz's DraftKings page for a second. Nicolau took down Smolka a bunch of times. Smolka is going to get taken down. He also had a couple knockdowns in that fight. He's got good power, dangerous on the ground, BJJ black belt. But I'm not sure he can get the fight to the ground, which is where, Nicolau has shown all the skills. Granted, it was against Smolka, and John Maragi wasn't as dominant, and he got 54 points in a decision win. But all the skills have been there. Dustin Ortiz, though, is a grinder. He can get tons of takedowns. He got 7 against Alexandre Pantoja, 4 against Brandon Moreno, 4 against Makovsky. He fights really well for DraftKings. When he wins, it's 90 to 100 points. He had 4 takedowns against Moreno. Got caught in a submission, by the way. That was a loss. He's 3-1 in his last 4. It's 7,200 for this guy if he fits. The problem is Nicolau does hit hard for 125. If he fits, though, I like Ortiz to make this grinding type of fight, possibly get a couple takedowns. I think this is going to go to a decision. I am still picking Nicolau to win, but for points per dollar, I think Ortiz would score much better in a win. So I'm picking Nicolau because I think he has all the tools and can do enough to keep space against Ortiz and use his striking. But Ortiz is the better DraftKings play in a close fight where he gets takedowns in a win. 7,200 for Dustin Ortiz is my preferred play. Caitlin Chukagi in 8,700 taking on Alexis Davis 7,500. I recorded the Loudmouth MMA podcast earlier, and I thought Kyle was messing with me. He said Alexis Davis was the 3rd ranked UFC flyweight. And apparently that's a real thing, and that is mind-blowing. Chukagian's at number 7. We're in, flyweight's a new division. I get it, but that's just not good. This is a typical striker versus grappler, although Alexis Davis hasn't gone for hasn't secured tons of takedowns recently. 1 takedown against Liz Carmouche in a win, none in a terrible fight against Cindy Dandois. Chookagian will have the advantage on the feet. Strikes in space will out volume. I know she does the annoying, screaming thing as she throws strikes, similar to Holly Holm. 8,700 is a pretty large price tag. Her win, she scored 64, 83, 53. I don't have a ton of interest in this fight overall. I guess Davis is in play because if she wins, it'll be grappling based, but I have much less interest here than I do in Ortiz because I think Ortiz is more likely to get the takedowns. I see this fight going Chukagian's way. I was considering a bet on Chukagian earlier in the week. Not sure I'm going to go there. But on DraftKings, 8,700 is a little too expensive to have heavy exposure, but she is my preferred play. John Makdessi, 8,900, taking on Ross Pearson, 7,300. Another fight that I think is really interesting, but I don't have a ton of interest in for DFS. These two guys are going to stand and have, I don't want to say stand and trade, because it could be a pretty low output, fight. In 3 rounds, Makdessi had 47 significant strikes against Abel Trujillo, 84 against Mehdi Baghdad. That's not too bad, but it's only 72 points in a win. He's priced at 8,900. His last UFC finish, I looked it up earlier, now I forget, all the way back in 2015 against Campbell. He hasn't knocked anybody really good out. And he's a guy who's once retired before. I see people on MMA Twitter betting him. I can't bet in a guy who's retired. That being said, Ross Pearson is just about out the door, snapped a 4-fight losing streak last time out. He's a typical boxer. He almost certainly won't look for the takedown. Last time he had takedowns was in 2016 against Jorge Masvidal. I just see this fight playing out on the feet. McDessie's the kickboxer. Pearson's the boxer. I always favor the kickboxer in that matchup. I will favor him here in a close striking match. I don't think it's going to be a steamroll. I know people are saying Pearson's done. He's willing to stand and trade, for as much volume as they're going to be. I just think this is a low volume decision. Overall, I'm picking McDessie to win, but I have such little interest and faith in a knockout. I think Pearson's the better play, just as a pure punt. Not interested in either guy, but I'll go with Pearson for 7,300. Now we get into a couple fights that I am very interested in after a few kind of weird ones for DFS. Gazmed Antigalov, whose first name I'm sure I butchered, 8,600, taking on Ion Cutelaba at 7,600. Look, I think this fight is mispriced in Vegas. This is one that I'm going heavy on. I have a bet on Gazmed Antigalov at minus 150. He's at minus 155 right now. He's great for DraftKings in the first 30 seconds of his fight. He's going to look to get this fight to the ground. He makes no bones about it. He's similar to Fabinski in that way. Maybe not as relentless, but that's because he gets the takedown and he just ground and pounds people, and he's been getting finishes, subs, knockouts. He's been doing his whole career. He's looking to get this fight to the ground. Whereas Ion Cutelaba is super aggressive. He's also, by the way, coming off a USADA suspension, a short one, 6 months, I believe. But he's aggressive, going to come right forward, and that actually, I think, plays into the hands of Antigalov to help him get a takedown. Cutelaba doesn't have great takedown defense. I believe he was taken down by Jared Cannonier. Look, it just stylistically, I see Antigalov getting a takedown and a finish. He's one of my most confident plays of the week, and he's 8,600, so I'm going to have a ton of exposure, and he is my preferred play. Next up, Islam Makhachev, 9,600, taking on Rajan Kajan Johnson. I said his name funny because, again, Kyle told me how to say his name correctly, and I just can't get it right. Who cares? The UFC hates him. They're trying to get him out of here. He's on a 4-fight win streak, though. His last time out, he beat Stevie Ray, knocked out Adriano Martins. Look, he's not a high-volume guy. He's terrible for DraftKings. Even though he's the cheapest fighter on the card, I don't have any interest. It comes down to how much Islam Makhachev do I want. The guy is a little like Habib Nurmagomedov, and he's relentless with a takedown. He knocked out Gleison Tibau last time out, but that was an aberration. Usually he's getting 4 takedowns against Chris Wade, who is a wrestler, 5 takedowns against Nick Lentz. Look, he's going to look for the takedowns. I don't think Cajun can stop him. If you can fit Islam Makhachev, go ahead and do it. He's clearly the preferred play at 9,600. Hakeem Dawodu, 9,400, taking on Austin Arnett, 6,800. Austin Arnett lost his UFC debut. He was finished by Cody Sandhagen in the second round. He was on the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series against Brandon Davis. That was a fun fight. But again, that was an aberration. Arnett is a karate guy, usually sits back and be too passive. And he's a big underdog. So 2 things you don't like on DraftKings. Dawodu was upset last time out. He was a big favorite against Danny Henry. Eventually got caught in a sub really early in the fight. Big prospect out of Canada, fighting at home. A lot of hype there. I think he's the better athlete. I think he's faster, got faster hands than Arnett. I'm just not sure about a finish. I think he's relatively safe to get a win. There is finish potential there. He's clearly the preferred play as lineups develop. That'll kind of determine how much exposure I ultimately have. Next up, Alex Morono, 8,100, taking on Jordan Mein at 8,100. Interesting fight in that Jordan Mein, I think, could have success if he takes his fight to the ground as long as he doesn't get caught in a submission. Morono is a BJJ black belt, but we've seen that Mein can get guys down. He took down Emil Meek 3 times. I know Meek's takedown defense is bad. He did get Bilal Muhammad down once and a reversal in that fight, and he won last time out against Eric Silva, but Eric Silva is kind of a shot fighter. Morono, on the other hand, is not very technical, big power, so he has the power advantage in this fight, dangerous on the ground. It's a pick 'em. I'm going to go with, I don't want to roster either of these guys in cash because I don't trust them enough to roster them in cash, so it becomes who's my better GPP play, and for that, and with Morono's sub skills, and he's clearly has more power. Mein is the more technical striker. Morono's more likely to get a knockout. I'll make Morono my pick and preferred play at 8,100, but it is a very close fight. Olivier Aubin Mercier, 8,300, taking on Alex Hernandez, 7,900. Alexander Hernandez coming off of that shock of the world knockout against Beneil Dariush. I lost some money on that fight. That's what Hernandez does, though. He blitzes. He's going to try and get the quick finish. He's in play to do that again, but not something I'm trusting. If you play him, it's a GPP play. I do like Olivier Aubin Mercier. I bet him against Evan Dunham. And a bunch of him on DraftKings. I wasn't expecting the quick knockout, but I'll take it. His fights are always lined close. I think he has the wrestling advantage in this fight, which is something I definitely look for. I think he can take down Hernandez. As long as he survives the early surge, I think he can take down Hernandez, get some advances, a little bit of control, maybe even a late finish. So Olivier Aubin Mercier is the preferred play, but I will have some Alexander Hernandez in GPPs. Next up, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, 9,200, taking on Tisha Torres at 7,000. Joanna coming off of 2 straight losses to Rose Namajunas. This is, I believe, she's only had a handful of fights in the UFC that have not been 5 rounds. Champion for a while. It actually takes away one of her advantages in that she just can keep the pace she keeps 4 or 5 rounds. Not going to look for takedowns, going to stand and strike. Interested to see if she's in play for cash games just because she is so expensive. It's how safe do you think she is for the win? Personally, I'm going to go towards Makhachev, and we'll see what I do with the rest of the roster. So she's clearly not the top option in that range. Tisha Torres, though, I really like her speed, her footwork. She could get takedowns in this fight, or that's where she would like this fight to go. She took down Jessica Andrade twice. She has, I think, the foot speed advantage, whereas Joanna should have the hand speed at being the world class striker. I think eventually Joanna figures out Tisha's game and wins the decision, but I think it's a closer fight than the line would indicate. This fight right now is lined again pretty wide, minus 300 for Joanna, plus 250 for Tisha Torres. Nobody can see Tisha or Joanna losing 3 fights in a row, and I get it. Tisha's look good. I think she's going to frustrate Joanna a little bit with the speed in and out. I don't see this fight ending in a knockout. So price per dollar, I think Tisha is one of those fine cash game punts. You can look between her and Dustin, get a little bit of salary saving. I think she's actually live to win the fight. Obviously, I do think Dustin has a better chance, but it's an interesting matchup. High level MMA, big dogs. A lot of times I'll look towards the dog, especially in this division. We don't know how the weight cut's going to be for Joanna. Don't know how her head is. So a lot of X factors out there. I think Tisha's live. So Joanna's my pick to win the fight, but I think actually going to go with Tisha Torres as my preferred DraftKings play for the salary savings at 7,000. Iceman 48 in chat. Who is a auto lock for this slate? Is Cajun live? I absolutely hate Cajun. I don't know if you just tuned in, but Cajun Johnson, I think Makhachev just steamrolls him. I mean, maybe, but even if he wins, it's not going to score well. He is the least expensive fighter, but I think there's better cheap options. Tisha Torres, I just mentioned, Dustin Ortiz, Brandon Marcos is a little bit up the salary chain. I think there's better dogs on this card. The auto lock for this slate, I'm going to get to that in the main event. Well, I'll give you 2. In the main event, I'll cover it in a second as I'm up to the co-main. I'm going to stack the main in cash almost certainly, and I'm going to have a ton of Gazmed and Tigalov. I just think he gets a quick takedown and a finish. Thanks for the question, Iceman. Moving on, we have the co-main event. Jeremy Stevens, 8,000, taking on Jose Aldo, 8,200. This is a fight where X factors unfortunately play a role. How shot is Jose Aldo? Is his head still in it? Lost 3 of his last 4. The flash knockout to McGregor. Did handle Frankie Edgar over 5 rounds. And those back-to-back losses to Max Holloway. Look, skill for skill, Jose Aldo should be the faster fighter. He should have the advantage on the feet. He should be able to piece up Jeremy Stevens and not gas out. If he does gas, it'll be towards the end of the 3rd round. I think he's enough to win a decision here. The problem is Stevens is super confident, looked the best he's ever looked in his 12 years in the UFC, 3-fight win streak, beat the crap out of Gilbert Melendez, knocked out Duho Choi and Josh Emmett. Aldo, if his chin is any kind of gone, if he looks to fold up, Stevens can counter with power. and land something. I think both these guys are live. I'm going to have some exposure to both sides. I won't go too nuts. It is a close fight. I think it's more likely to go to a decision. Aldo would have success with the leg kicks if he would go back to them. I've been saying that since the Max Holloway fight. I'm not sure he's going to do it. So skill for skill, I'm going to take Jose Aldo at 8,200 as my pick to win the fight. I do think GPPs, you might get some more leverage and some. I have more interest in Jeremy Stephens in GPPs to get a knockout and score a ton of points. So I have interest in both sides for those reasons. I'm going to play more cash games. Aldo's the preferred play. Tournaments, Stephens is the preferred play at 8,000. Stephens and cash. I think Stephens is more. This is Peter Kahori. I think Stephens is more of a GPP play. Iceman also likes Jeremy. Iceman, if you're in DFS Army, let me know in Slack chat. Make sure and find me in there. We can talk more about Lock, Stephens, and cash. Again, I think Aldo Stephens is the GPP play. Iceman again. Chukagian's a good play. Chukagian and cash. Worried about the upside there. Get to the main event. Dustin Poirier at 8,800, taking on Eddie Alvarez at 7,400 in a much anticipated rematch. I wish they would have ran this fight back right away. Poirier hurt Alvarez. Alvarez came back, had Poirier hurt, and eventually, landed those illegal knees. So Alvarez said something today where he knows the way to win this fight is he's going to have to suffer, and no one's willing to suffer more than him. He's going in there knowing he's going to take damage. To me, that's an issue. Poirier has the hand speed advantage. We saw it in the first fight. I think he got a little tired chasing the knockout in the first fight. I think he's learned a bunch since then. I am notorious as saying rematches very rarely go the same way as the first fight. It's a popular misconception in rematches. It'll go the same way. I don't think they do. I think this will be a fun fight. Both guys are going to stand and trade. That part I do think is true. It might start out a little slower because they both know they can hurt each other. I am going to stack this fight in cash. I want a piece of it. I do think the winner of this fight is going to be in the winning GPP lineup. You need heavy exposure on both sides. I'm leaning Poirier because I know Alvarez is going to take damage. I know Poirier's hand speed, especially that left hook, could cause problems. I'm picking Poirier to win. He's the preferred play at 8,800. Alvarez, plenty of paths to victory. He is super durable. He can wrestle. Not counting him out at all. But I slightly lean Poirier as the younger, fresher guy with the better hand speed. One last check of the chat here on YouTube Live. Peter said the same thing. He is durable. He is. Probably why I'm stacking it in cash. I'm going to have exposure on both sides. To find out more about my exposures, you should go to dfsarmy.com. My link is down in the description. Make sure and check that out. Become a VIP member. Use code SNIPER for 10% off. Who will be higher owned? I think Poirier comes in higher owned. I think it's close, though. I think in cash, both guys will be over 50%. In GPPs, I think Poirier is around 50 and Alvarez is around 40. Like, it's going to be a lot. Make sure and also Loudmouth MMA, tons of MMA content, and Newsom MMA, great betting, and other DraftKings guys over there. Support all of them. My content will be out tomorrow morning, and I'll be Friday morning, and I'll be in Slack chat for DFS Army all day. Thanks for the guys participating in chat. If you want to join next week, remember I usually record these on Wednesdays. The link will be out. Follow me on Twitter to get that. Good luck in your contest. Appreciate the support. Like this video, click subscribe. Good luck in your contest. I will see you next week.